Hello guys, today we're going to continue on with Chapter 3, Polynomials, and we'll be starting Section 3.4, Subtracting Polynomials. So write down this title, the section title in your exercise book, and when we're ready we'll move on. Okay, so just a quick little review when you're working with negative numbers. If you saw something like this, negative 2 outside of 4, or negative 2 times 4, you would recall that a negative number times by a positive number gives a negative number. Okay, so negative 2 times a positive 4 is going to be 8 is our number, and it's a negative because it's negative times positive. Here we have negative 2 times negative 4, so 8 is the number, and we have a negative times by a negative, and that's going to equal a positive. So here we have positive 8, and I could write my positive sign in, but when you leave it out, it's assumed that it's positive. Okay, so you guys should know that by now. That's just a quick little reminder. Another quick review. Negative 4. So this looks a bit strange, but what it actually means is a negative 1. So negative 1 times a positive 4 is a negative 4. And down here, same thing, negative 1 times negative 4, we could write it like that. And then negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4. So you could see, just by quickly looking at this, the negative out front is just simply switching the sign. Negative out front switches this negative 4 to a positive 4. Okay, and you'll see where I'm going with this now in a second. So here, same thing. Negative 1 really is what that is. Negative 1 times 4x. Well, we switch the sign. That's a positive 4x, and now it becomes negative 4x. This one here, negative times negative 4x. That negative 4x, this negative, when you multiply it in, actually switches the sign here, so it becomes positive. Because a negative times a negative is positive. Okay, now this time, instead of dealing with monomials, or just constants or numbers here, we're going to see how that negative affects a binomial or a trinomial. Okay, so this is what I want you to write down in your exercise book. Okay, so example number 1. Switch my color here. So the negative is now multiplying by this term, and the negative 1 is also multiplying into this term. So all we need to do here is the negative times a positive 4x becomes a negative 4x. And we know that, we saw that in the previous example. I'm just going to flick back here. The negative multiplied here and became negative 4x. But this time we got a binomial, so we have to deal with this second term. So the negative also multiplies by that. So negative times a positive 1 becomes a negative 1. Okay? I like looking at this like this. I usually when I'm solving a problem, I'll draw my arrows out like this. Some people just like to see, if they see the negative up front, they just switch all the signs inside their polynomial. So we see here this term switch to a negative, and this positive 1 term also switch to a negative. So whatever you like to do. So we're going to do the second one together. So the negative multiplies in here, and the negative multiplies in here. So we switch the signs. Negative 3x becomes a positive 3x, because negative times negative is positive, and negative 1 times positive 2, negative times a positive is negative. Or we can just remember this is a positive 2 and we have a negative out front, so we switch our signs. Now I want you to try these two examples on your own. Pause the video, and when we're done we'll see if you got them correct. Okay, by now you should have these two attempted. So if we look here, negative is multiplying by both our terms, so our positive 5x becomes negative 5, positive 5y becomes negative 5y, and the negative times in here Negative times negative 1 becomes positive 1. Also, you can notice that once this negative comes in, we can forget about it, we've used it, and we can drop our brackets. So this actually simplifies to this. We've gotten rid of this negative up front, and we've gotten rid of the brackets, but in order to get rid of that stuff, we had to switch our signs. Alright, so let's try this one. Negative is multiplying here into our 3 terms. Negative times a positive x squared is negative x squared. Just switching our signs, positive 3x. Because we multiplied in, this becomes negative 3x. And negative 6, because we got that negative out front, that now becomes positive 6. So all we did is we simply switched our signs and dropped our brackets. Okay, hopefully you got those right. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, we're ready to jump into our first major example. So here's an example of subtracting polynomials, what this section is all about. So how do we do this? Our first step. Actually, I'm going to switch to black there. Black. First step. Alright, so we have to multiply our negative into our second polynomial. This here stays exactly the same. So 3 3x plus 8. I'm just going to write it down. And now negative, we multiply it in. This now becomes a negative 5x. And we can drop our brackets. So it just becomes negative 5x. Okay, so I'm going to drop my brackets now on the first one, because we can put this together like we put together like terms before when we were adding polynomials. So we're going to drop our brackets there. Remember, that was our first step when we were adding polynomials. And we have negative 5x. Alright, now we're good to put together like terms like we usually do. I got a 3x and a negative 5x. I'm going to write them together. 3x minus 5x plus 8. So I'm just going to bring that term down. I had no like terms. I'm going to put together my like terms here. 3x subtract 5x is really minus 2x. And this never changed, plus 8. Okay, so all we're doing is we're just here dropping the brackets and making our what was inside here the opposite. So it was a negative 5 and we dropped the brackets and it became a positive negative. It was a negative 5 and became a sorry, it was a positive 5 and it became a negative 5. Okay, some people might like to write this like this. Keep the brackets. So this became a negative 5, and then switch my sign here as well. Okay, but I find that a little bit confusing. I just like to drop my brackets and switch my sign, that's all. Okay, so let's see the next example. Okay, write this down in your exercise book. Alright, so this stays the same. 3x plus 2y. I'm actually going to drop my brackets right away in this step. So 3x plus 2y. And now I'm going to use my rule. When I got a negative out front, or a subtract, I'm subtracting polynomials. I bring it in and it acts on my two terms. So this now becomes subtract 5x, or minus 5x. And the negative came in here. And it was negative y, but now, because the negative is out front, it's going to become a positive y. I'm just switching my signs. And now we see this step looks really, really familiar. Once we switched our signs here, now all we have to do is put together our like terms, group our like terms, and solve or simplify. So I'm going to look at my like terms here. I have an x and an x and a y and a y. So we have 3x minus 5y plus 2y plus y. So this equals, so 3x minus 5, whoops, that is an x. Change that in your notes, guys. That's this term here. So 3x minus 5x is minus 2x, and 2y plus y is plus, and you can write your 1 in here if you need it. 2y plus 1y is 3y. So that's our simplified answer. So you can see after this first step, after you switch your signs of your terms, everything is similar to what we've done. Okay, and last example for today. We got an x squared plus 2, subtract 5x minus 4. So I'm going to drop my brackets here for my first term, x squared plus 2. And I'm going to drop my brackets in my second term, but before we do that, we have to remember this negative is acting on our terms. So this becomes, instead of a positive 5x, this is going to become a negative 5x. And this negative acts on this negative 4. Negative 4 becomes the positive 4. Okay, we have some like terms here. We have a positive constant, positive 2, and a positive 4. These are unlike terms because we have the square here. So I'm just going to write them down. So equals x squared. That's that term taken care of. Minus 5x. That's that term taken care of. And then we have plus 2 and plus 4. And those are those terms taken care of. So I can simplify by putting together my like terms. So our final answer is x squared minus 5x, positive 2, so plus 2 plus 4 equals positive 6. And this is our final simplified answer. So again, quick summary. Pretty much the only thing you have to worry about when you're subtracting polynomials is that you have to change your signs of the second polynomial before you start combining your like terms. Alright, so this is the practice work you have to do today. Textbook page 235. Make sure you write these down because there's a lot of letters here. I never made you do all of them. The longest problem is going to be number 8, but that's the best one to practice. Okay, so try to get all those done. Good luck, and if you have any questions, please let me know.